Hello, John Hively here. Today we're going to report on oligarchic news and how the oligarchs are making a ton of money off of you and on the events that occurred yesterday. Now, yesterday, what happened? The President of the United States kind of caved into the Chinese on the tariff issue. Actually took a couple steps back, I'd say. He backed off. But it was what happened before then that's most important. But here, let's take a look at the president's comments.
145% is very high, and it won't be that high. Not going to be that high. It got up to that. We were talking about fentanyl, where various elements built it up to 145. No, it won't be anywhere near that high. It'll come down substantially, but it won't be zero. It used to be zero. We were just destroyed. China was taking us for a ride, and just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. We're going to be very good to China, have a great relationship with President Xi, but they would make billions and billions and billions of dollars a year, and they would build their military out of the United States and what they made, so that won't happen. But
So that was the president telling us all that those Chinese tariffs are going to be a little bit more flexible. But what happened before then? United States Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bissett, whatever his name is, you know he is. Anyway, Reuters reported that U.S. Treasury Secretary, and I'm reading here, Scott Bissett said on Tuesday to a group of Wall Street investors, and in particular it was a JP Morgan investor, closed meeting. He said that there will be a de-escalation in Chinese trade tensions, but negotiations with Beijing have not yet started and would be a slog, according to a person who heard his closed-door presentation to investors at a JP Morgan conference. What do you think happened to the market? It shot up. That's what happened to the market. And I would bet this was planned. This was planned probably on April 21st, when the market, late on April 21st, when the market, after the market had tanked again, in order to stop the market from tanking, and also to provide insiders with information not available to the rest of the public, that's me and you, but those investors at that JP Morgan in a closed meeting, they knew what was going to happen. And so I'm sure they took advantage of it. In the meantime, let's take a look at something else that happened. This is according to Lever News. And I'm reading again. The automaker behind Chrysler, Dodge, and Jeep vehicles just announced a $2.26 billion payout to its shareholders. And most of those folks are wealthy folks. Some of you might hold some Chrysler shares, and it's Stellantis is the name of the company that owns Chrysler. But mostly it's going to be wealthy, the very rich, who are getting a lot of money. Okay, so they announced a $2.26 billion payout to its shareholders less than 2 weeks after the company used President Donald Trump's new auto tariffs to lay off nearly 1,000 American workers. On April 4th, Stellantis, one of the country's big three automakers, announced the temporary layoffs at 5 U.S. factories and production pauses at facilities in Canada and Mexico. The Dutch conglomerate, which subsumed Fiat Chrysler automobiles in 2021, told its employees, quote, it had decided to take some immediate actions in response to Trump's sweeping tariffs, which included a 25% tax on auto imports. So there you have it. You're laying off 1,000 to provide very wealthy shareholders a very large bonus, basically, dividend payments probably. And you have a situation in which certain people, very wealthy people, at a JP Morgan closed meeting had an opportunity to buy the market after buy stocks after a big sellout because they had inside information. Now, let me tell you, who is this Scott? Let me ask you guys this. Do you know who Scott Bissett used to work for? Let me tell you. This is how the oligarchy works. Donald Trump is a Republican, right? Bissett used to be a hedge fund manager, excuse me, for George Soros, the Democratic bastion of fundraising. So you have these two guys, Bissett and Trump, who are working the same thing. I don't know if Trump's in on the insider trading, but I do know that somebody had information on it. And I'm not going to say that Trump was involved in that, but somebody Bissett gave insider information on the likelihood of what was going to happen. And at Stellantis, there's 1,000 people who are laid off. And that's going to, when you don't have to pay those folks, that's going to free up money to pay your wealthy shareholders. Anyway, that's your news for today. Thanks for listening. And we're going to get to a couple things. If you liked what you saw today, please share, like, and spread the word. And subscribe too. Also, if you're interested on a history of the oligarchy, I'm going to have episode 6 out in the next day or so. And the modern oligarchs and how they interact with one another and how they've basically controlled the entire government apparatus of the United States and in most state governments as well. Anyway, you folks have a good one. It's sunny. I want to go outside and have a good time. Okay, have a good one. Bye-bye.